Hi, I'm Khalila McCoy, and this is the podcast that always gives you something to reflect on. This is Where We Rise. Hi, everyone. It's so great to be here with you this week. So, I have to tell you something. Someone recently pointed out that in every episode, I say how excited I am that you're here and how excited I am to talk to the guests. Well, guess what? It's true. As I shared back in episode 0, Listening Louder, I love talking to people and learning from them. Talking with each guest has brought me so much joy. So I am excited all the time, and I hope you are excited too. I hope you're laughing, sometimes crying, learning, and growing as much as I am. Today's episode is The Assignment is Different. This is something our guest, Shelley Meche'tte, says when she talks about her shift in her career. Shelley is a woman of faith, filled with God's love, living her purpose, and the survivor of not one, not two, but 3 strokes. Now she uses her story to inspire other women to walk in their purpose. That is a different assignment. We all know that on the journey of life, every path isn't smooth, but sometimes it's the struggle that leads us to our strongest, most aligned selves. So let's jump into this conversation. I know Shelley's fun and infectious energy will keep you hooked. Hi, Miss Shelley. How are you today?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, we got a chance to talk on the phone already a little bit
Mhm.
about your story, about what you're going to share today. And you
Uh-huh.
didn't give me all the details, but I am very excited to hear more. I know that you have a great story to share, great faith to share in your episode. I feel it's going to be a great blessing to everybody listening. So I'm just going to have you jump in and get started and just tell us who you are
Yeah,
and what you're hoping to share with us today and what we're going to be able to take away from your life story.
absolutely. I am Shelley Meche'tte, and I actually, I say that I used to be a coach, but that's not true. I still am a coach, empowerment speaker, and best-selling author. But after my experience, God has just kind of rerouted me a little bit. I used to work
Mhm.
with moms who were mompreneurs, so helping mompreneurs balance motherhood and business. And so, if any woman is a mom and you're trying to do a business, it's a lot to juggle, and
Yes.
so that's what I was doing. But as someone who survived 3 strokes in one day about 7 months ago,
Oh, wow.
God kind of rerouted me just a little bit. I still speak, I still coach, but now he has opened up the door for me to not work with mompreneurs, but to work with faith-driven women entrepreneurs so that we'll
Okay.
put down the grind and pick up grace, and so that God can show us how to grow our businesses and how to align our life with who he has called us to be so that we're not always frustrated, burned out, angry, bitter,
Yes.
irritable. And so that came about, like I said, after that experience, after me walking into an ER one day, literally because I had head pains, not knowing that just a few hours later, I would literally be clinging on to life in an ER bed.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, when again, I said we talked ahead of time, but I did not realize that the 3 strokes happened in the same day. I thought it was
Yes.
over time. Okay,
No.
so walk us through that day. You had just regular head
Yeah.
pains. Like, what
Yeah.
did it feel like
Actually,
that made you go to the ER?
well, the thing is, I didn't really run to go to ER because I've had migraines since I was a teen. So it's not
Okay.
like I was so like, oh my goodness, I have a pain in my
Mhm.
head. I was already on medication. But the thing is, I hadn't been taking the medication as much, which was great. So that meant I wasn't having
As
headaches as
frequent. Yeah.
frequently. And so I wasn't taking it. But what I found is that over the course of a few weeks. I don't know, it could have been even more than a few weeks. Maybe it had been, a good month or so. I'm not 100% sure anymore. But over that time, I noticed that I was taking them a bit more.
Okay.
And so I was having more frequent headaches. Not that the headaches themselves had changed, but they were more frequent. So it was already on my radar to be like, you know what? I'm going to have a neurology appointment because they're just more frequent. And then I began noticing that, wow, my eyes kind of hurt when I have these headaches now. So when I would look up, my eyes would hurt. They were very, very sensitive. But again, the reason why it didn't jump out at me is because I have been told before that migraines change.
Okay.
And I have been having some ear problems, and my neurologist has said, migraines do change. It could show up in different ways. This could happen,
Mhm.
that could happen. So once again, I'm just not cluing into that. I just thought maybe it's part of it. So when I was gonna go to the doctor, it wasn't because I was so concerned. It was maybe things are changing. Maybe I need to change my medication for whatever reason that is. But 2 weeks prior to that, I was with my family for an event. And as I was sitting there, a sharp, sharp pain hit me so bad that I grabbed my head.
Wow.
And my mom, she's like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And my daughter's like, "Are you all right?" And I felt a little woozy.
Mhm.
Got up to get some water, and I'm just like, wow, this is really, really painful. I am definitely gonna have to make sure that I get this appointment because this really, really hurts. Fast
Yeah.
forward 2 weeks before I even made it to the doctor. Mind you, I hadn't even made the appointment yet. I'm like, oh yeah, let me make the appointment. Let me make the appointment. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Right? Let me make the appointment. The night before, as I'm sitting talking to one of my daughters, I have a sharp pain again, and it was so sharp, I yelled out, "Oh," and I grabbed my head, and my daughter's like, "Oh my gosh, what is going on?" Before I could
Yeah.
even answer her, another one hit me, and it kinda, like, tossed me back into the bed. That's how much it hurt. At the time, which I didn't correlate it, because of
Uh-huh.
the banter that me and my kids have. My daughter, was playing with my lip and she's like, "Why are you talking funny?" And I just like brushed her hand off. I'm like, "Girl, move. Ain't nobody talking funny." I didn't feel like I was talking funny, but
Mhm.
now looking back on it, that was a big clue. My lip was drooping. Did not know that.
Oh, okay.
And in the middle of the night, I had the 3rd and I had already said, "I'm going in the morning." But before the morning could even come, another pain jolted me out of my sleep. So
Oh
I'm
my
like, yeah,
goodness.
if I wasn't gonna go, which I already was, but I'm like, if I
You're
wasn't going,
for sure,
I'm
yeah.
for sure. The sun couldn't even come up good, girl. I was up. I'm like, I am out of here. Uh,
Yes.
Still with the same thing in mind that, if there is something wrong, praise God, I'm here, I'll catch it,
Mhm.
not a problem. It's probably just the change. Get
Right.
there. I'm in ER in the waiting room, child. I'm watching TikToks. I'm laughing. I'm eating snacks. And after about 2 hours of me just chilling, I go into the back with the ER doctor. We're going through some tests, and right in the middle of us going through the test is when the first stroke happens.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
I mean, that's a blessing that you're right there in front of the
and
doctor.
right in front of the doctor. So you cannot tell me that that was not orchestrated. I had spent that entire time in the waiting room, no
Mhm.
pain, no issues, nothing. And then as soon as I got to the back, once we began the test, that's when the first stroke happened.
Right. Well, what is that like? Do you know what's happening to your body? Do you feel anything? Like, what happens when you have a stroke?
Yeah, I can only speak for myself, is that
Mhm.
at that particular time, I was in the midst of trying to repeat something that she said. She had asked
Okay.
me to spell the word world. And
Mhm.
I kept trying to figure out kinda like, what do you mean? Like, what are you saying? And
Right.
it's like I understood, but I didn't understand. So I hear what you're saying, but for whatever reason, I couldn't process what you were saying, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
So I hear and I understand what you're asking me to do, but it's just that for whatever reason, I cannot process what you're
Mm.
asking me to do. So it's like I hear you, and she kept saying it again, and I kept going, what do you mean? Like, huh, you're
Mhm.
saying spell something, but I'm constantly going like, huh? You know,
Oh,
um, what? At that point, I saw the word world in my head and it began to disappear, starting from the D all the way to the W, and it just
interesting.
disappeared right in front of me. And at that point, when I was trying to spell, I just went back. I fell back into the bed, into a stroke.
Okay.
So I was very cognitive of every single thing that was going on, all of the movement that was happening,
Mhm.
them, snapping their fingers in my face, the conversation. I was very
Mhm.
well aware of it. And then, I don't even know how many minutes afterwards, it was just like, okay,
And then you
I'm
just
back.
came back.
I just
Okay.
came back. At that
Wow.
point, they didn't know if it was a stroke, if it was a seizure, they were checking blood
Mhm.
sugar, and things of that nature. I called my husband, I called my mom, for them to come. And actually I really had told my mom and my daughter, I'm like, it's fine, they're gonna run some tests. They're not sure what happened, blah, blah, blah. In the midst of the conversation with my mother, I went into a second stroke
Oh my
while she
goodness.
was on the phone with me.
Okay.
Yes. And it's that one that ended up taking my speech. So I was on the phone
Mm.
talking to my mom, but by the time my mom made it there, my speech had been impaired.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. And while my family was there in the room with me, my children had gone back into the waiting room. And so while my mom and my husband were in there, we were talking and,
Mhm.
as much as I could, because at that time, like I said, my speech had been impaired. I had done some other tests and things like that. And in the midst of it, I went into another stroke. And that's the one that almost killed me.
Wow. So what happened for the 3rd one? Is it like
Yeah,
your
the
whole
3rd
body kind of
literally in my 3rd stroke, I literally began to feel the life leave my body. So I
Oh,
literally
wow.
in the best that I can describe it is if you have a sponge and you're
Mhm.
slowly squeezing it from the top to the bottom. So that
Mhm.
that was the life. The life was literally just kinda draining
Oh my
out of my body, and
goodness.
I felt it start at my neck, and I felt it move down, and I knew consciously because it didn't start in my head. It didn't start at the
Right.
top. It literally started in my neck. And so I understood that by the time this reached my feet, that I would be gone. So I was very,
Wow.
yes, I was very aware of the fact that I was passing. I was very aware of the fact that this was the end. In the midst of that, I looked up at my husband to let him know that I loved him. And
Oh.
I looked to my mom to let her know that
Mhm.
I loved her. My kids weren't there, so my husband, he ran out of the room to grab my kids
Mhm.
so that they could come in and say goodbye.
Oh my
And
goodness.
um
Was this,
yeah,
like, slow? How would
yeah.
you say the time frame was for this?
It felt like, it didn't feel slow, but it didn't feel fast. It was
Okay.
just like just
Kinda like an energy draining,
yeah,
low.
just like a
Yeah.
physical drain, to the point of where at one point I began to say to my mother and my husband, I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Mm.
And my mom began looking around and she's like, nothing is going off. Your vitals look well. But I knew that I was no longer breathing for myself. A breath began to come from above and began
Okay.
blowing inside of my body. And
Oh my
so I
gosh.
knew, though, that I was no longer breathing on my own and that
Mhm.
was the Spirit of the Lord just calming me, because
Mm.
I jumped in panic because I couldn't breathe. And as
Yeah.
soon as I got ready to really freak out, this breath just began to just slowly blow within my body. And I laid back down and my mom kept looking around going like, I don't see anything wrong with the vitals. So I always tell people, I don't know what that was going to look like on their end, if it would have looked
Mhm.
like a cardiac arrest or something like that. But I knew that at that point, oh, I'm not even breathing on my
Right.
own anymore. This is really just God's hand calming me so that I
Yes.
don't end up being all sporadic as this
Mhm.
is going through. My
Yes.
mom, she gave this scream after I told her that I loved her. She just belted out this scream that I've never heard before. And, and I prayed to never ever hear
Hear it
again.
again.
And she just screamed, "No." And she said, "No, God, not my daughter."
Mm.
And everything was just happening. And all of a sudden, the pressure that was happening in my body got to the bottom of my stomach and stopped.
Hmm.
It just stopped. And I began to chuckle. And
Really?
yes, I began to chuckle. And I know my family was like, because the atmosphere just changed. There's an
Yes.
atmosphere of emotional chaos at
Right.
one moment. And now all of a sudden I'm chuckling. I know. And I didn't even see my family, but I know they was looking like, so is this what happens in the end? People just kind of go,
Right? It just
they just kind of like,
like, you think this funny. We are not thinking this is funny.
right? Do they just pass out? Like what happens here? But when I chuckled, I said, I whispered, I said, God said no.
Mm.
God said no. And as soon as I said that, the life, I don't know how quick it was, but it began to come back into my body. And I know for a fact that I was on my way out of here because both my mother and my husband touched me and said my body was completely ice cold.
Oh my goodness.
Ice cold. My
Yeah.
mother said it felt like I had been in the morgue.
Mm.
Because that and I so I know that what I felt is what I felt,
It
which was the
was,
life
yes.
literally drained
Draining.
itself from my body. But once it got to the bottom of my stomach, it stopped. And God reversed life at that
Did you
moment.
feel it start to fill back up? Like, was it an
I
instant?
no, I do not have that recollection. I don't have
Okay.
that recollection of literally feeling it. My whole thing, there was so much that was kind of happening at the
Mhm.
time because my family is like, what's going on? What's happening? Are you okay? I would really have to ask my family, like, how soon was it that I set up or, what happened? My next memory is of me being in the room. And that's after my husband had jogged that memory for me because at first that was gone too. And he reminded me, oh, remember, they asked you if you could walk into the room into this. And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, I do remember that. So I only have that memory because he jogged it for me. But other than that, my next full memory is really being in the hospital room and trying to figure out. My husband was holding a piece of bread and me trying to figure out what's the name of that? What is that called?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that's my next full memory, trying to figure out what Chili's toast was called. I'm like, it got a name, y'all. It got a
Yes.
name.
And
What is
Chili's
it?
got ghetto, so if you don't remember that.
Look, they were eating, I wasn't. I was just looking.
Right.
I'm like, man, because nobody fed me at that point. They like, you just worry about breathing.
Yes.
But a nurse came in the next day, which again, I don't remember this nurse, but a nurse
Mhm.
came in the next day and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're here." And she came over and she hugged me. She's like, "Oh, you're here." And I said, "Well, we know you wasn't expecting to see
Right?
we know what
That's
you was
not a good
expecting."
sign, right.
But she was so shocked to see me. She's like, "Oh."
Now, when you were going through that, like the life draining, did your family call in the doctors and stuff? Like, what were their reactions to what you experienced?
My mother, I do recall at some point that a nurse was in there, and my mother kept saying, because my mom was slapping me, trying to get me to come back, and at one point I was like, "Listen, don't, okay."
Right.
And
You're
so
not
at
helping.
what? Yeah, I remember the nurse saying, "Hey, ma'am, you have got to stop hitting her." I'm like, "Can you please let her know?" you know And because I was kind of I was still out of it, I was thinking these things, I just couldn't say them. But when
Right.
the nurse was like, "You have got to stop it," I was like, "Can you please? Can you let her know? Can you let her know this is not helping?" And I remember my mom going, "Okay, then do something, do
Mhm.
something, help her." And so,
Right.
yeah, that's the only thing that I remember of that little piece of her saying to the nurse, "Do something for her, she's not here."
Mhm.
So, yeah. Mhm.
What was the recovery like? So you talked about, like, being back in the room, looking at the red and
Mhm.
things like that. How long were you in the hospital after that?
I was released from the hospital a couple of days later, but here's the kicker. I was released from the hospital with no medication.
Oh, really?
Nothing. Yeah. The doctor who was on call that day, he kind of, and I hate using the word like he brushed things off, but looking at me after the situation, he just kind of
Mhm.
felt like, okay, we've looked at you, we've run scans, we did this. They monitored my head for 24 hours to make sure that there was no damage. I had no damaged tissues, no blocked nothing, absolutely nothing. They from the time that I prepared to leave, they already told me that in my files it would only say stroke-like symptoms because medically they could not say that because nothing had been damaged. Absolutely nothing.
Hmm, okay.
Everything, my left side was weak from it going numb. So I went
Mhm.
numb over 75% of my body, but yet
Right.
I was weak, but I was able to walk. I still
Okay.
had to build that up, to this day. I still have tingles or burning or this. So those things do happen. But when
Mhm.
I left with no medication and no real 100% plan. So 2 days later, I was rushed back to the hospital again.
Uh-oh.
And
For the
then,
same symptoms?
for the exact same thing. And what was happening is my blood pressure was going out of whack. But no one
Mhm.
to this day, I'm still going to the doctor, figuring out different things. Is this the cause of the pressure? Is that the cause of the pressure? So I'm
Right.
still seeing doctors, seeing kidney specialists, seeing, liver special things like that to see if there's any connection to it. But when I left at that time, I wasn't given anything. So without medication, I was still skyrocketing all over the place, with my pressure. So 2 days later, I was back in the hospital with a pressure that was 190 over 100,
Oh, girl,
you
that
know.
is yeah.
Right? And then from there, I ended up being back in the hospital, again, and then I developed severe anxiety, and then I was back in the hospital. So I was
Right.
back and forth in the hospital probably for a good maybe a month and some, back and forth.
Mhm.
And the nighttime would trigger me. And
Okay.
so as soon as the sun went down, I would begin to hyperventilate. I would begin to sweat. I would begin to get nauseous, to get sick. I couldn't sleep. Um, you know, I would begin to cry, and I would stay up as late, as I
Yeah.
possibly could, just hoping that I could be up until the sun breaks. I would sleep maybe for an hour, and then I would wake up and realize it's still dark and go into a hyperventilation all over
Mhm.
again.
Why didn't you wanna sleep?
For whatever reason,
Mhm.
nighttime was a trigger. So
Okay.
I can't explain why it was, but nighttime for me, as soon as the sun went down, my body went into total
Panic,
panic
yeah.
mode.
Okay.
And so the situation did not happen at night, but it could have been because I was rushed back to the hospital at night,
Mhm.
who knows? But for whatever reason, as soon as the sun went down, I would begin to hyperventilate, to have anxiety, to go into panic attacks. I
Mhm.
can't breathe. I go into tears. I try to talk my mom all night to death because I was staying at her house. So I want to talk to her all night long. I was completely 1,000,000% exhausted. My body was fatigued from me just trying so hard to stay awake. And then when the daytime would come, I would nap,
Okay.
because
So
I'm
you could
so
sleep in
exhausted.
the
In
daytime.
the
That's
daytime, yes.
interesting.
And
Okay.
it could, and again, it could be because everybody was moving. Something was going
Yes.
on. My uncle was moving around the house. My mom was up. So it
So
could
it's
just
like if
be
something were to happen, there at least be people
that
around
somebody was
versus at
right,
night, everybody's sleeping,
right.
you can't call for
Eh,
help. That
right,
makes
and
sense, yeah.
so it could talking
Mhm.
through it now, that coulda just been it. I'm stuck, and
Mhm.
I would feel at night like I'm suffocating, and so as soon as the sun would come up, as soon as I see the break of sun, or as soon as I
Yes.
hear my uncle in the kitchen, then every part of me would
You're like,
relax,
"I
and I
made
would
it."
fall
Yeah.
asleep.
Yeah. Do you feel too like because you had to keep going to the hospital, they didn't have
Mhm,
answers for you, they didn't know what happened. Do you feel like that
mhm.
added on to your anxiety where people, like, Google things and try to figure out are you, like,
Oh,
desperately trying
girl,
to figure out, like, what was going on with
yes.
your body?
I
Okay.
was a Google queen, and let me tell you,
Mhm.
for me, what information was too much.
Okay.
'Cause so the information, I believe that I needed that information, but I couldn't stop. So I would continue and continue and continue, and so it became information overload for me, and then that began to bring on more anxiety because every time, number one, I didn't trust my body anymore. And I didn't trust my own feelings anymore. And I didn't trust that I understood what was happening anymore. So the minute my fingernail, broke, I'm jumping and I'm like, why would my fingernail break? Could it be brittle? This and that? Well, that's going to lead to this and now I'm going to die. And so it was always that serious
Yeah,
where
you're
I'm laying.
heightened. Yes.
Yes, everything was that serious. If my eyebrow jumped, now I'm Googling, what happens when your eyebrow jump? Okay,
Mhm.
my nerves are this and my nerves are that. My eye keeps jumping. Am I going to die? It was a vicious cycle. And
Yeah.
so while I needed the information to help put myself on track, too much of the information was killing me.
Right.
And I had to make a conscious decision to to not read, hear, listen, watch, nothing. Take the medication, record your pressure, lean on your support system.
Talk to us about your support system. I'm assuming
Oh
your
my
mom and
God.
your husband,
Yes.
children.
Yes, they were 100%. My mother, you just never stop being a mom.
Mhm.
I can just say so much and it just makes me so emotional. My
Yeah.
mom, she already has her own health issues. She has knee issues. So, it's painful a lot of times for her to walk around too much, So she's on she's on a cane, sometimes, and she was up every morning, every single morning, making sure that I'm okay, making sure to take care of me, cooking meals, 3 meals a day to make sure that I'm completely nourished, making sure that my pressure is okay. She's, making sure to check my pressure, making sure that I'm having medication. She's out shopping for me, making sure that I have the proper this, the proper that. She's washing clothes. You know, even one night I couldn't sleep and I just broke down. I broke down into tears and, mm, and I couldn't sleep. And,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, and I had to change medicines because the medicine was making me nauseated, and medicine was making me where I couldn't function. And I'm a person who I'm used to doing everything for myself,
Mhm.
and I'm very independent, and I have a business, and I can't not be able to function.
Right.
And my mother, as I sat there, crying, and she came and she just sat next to me and she just put her arms around me and she's like, "It's gonna be okay. We're gonna figure this out. It's moment by moment, but we're gonna figure it all out. And it's
Yes.
okay." And she stayed up with me. And she, I don't know how long we stayed up, but she stayed up. Not one time did she complain. She prayed with me. She walked the floor with me. She
Mm.
hugged me, and she made it okay for me to break down.
Yes.
And I think that's what I needed, to be okay with not being
Being
okay.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, it didn't stop the future tears. But it put me in a position to really be able to lean even more on my faith, to really lean on God, to really lean on my family. What I
Mhm.
realized later is everything that they were going through. They had all types of anxiety. My husband couldn't rest,
Yeah.
and mind you, during this time, none of my family stopped working. So they were
Okay.
up at 3 in the morning in ER with me. And some days we were at ER for 24 hours straight, for 36
Mhm.
hours straight. They were sleeping in chairs in my room. They were sleeping at the end of my bed. They were exhausted and they would leave my hospital room and they would go to work.
Oh,
And then they would
wow.
leave from work and they would come
And then
back
come right back.
and come right back. And so
Yes.
while I may have been the one who was healing physically, my family was going through emotionally. My family was
Right.
going through physically. My family didn't know, the next time I went into the hospital if I was going to come out.
Mhm.
So I hadn't realized until later that, one of my kids had a full, just a full breakdown. She just,
Right.
fetal position breakdown to where she just went into full panic mode. My other child literally passed out one day just from exhaustion
Oh,
because it's just too much. My
right.
husband couldn't sleep. Every time something would happen, he would jump up. He said to me recently, I was laying in the bed and I guess I wasn't moving enough for him. But
Mhm.
walked into the bedroom, and this was recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago. He says, I come in the room and sometimes I still feel like it's something wrong. Did something
Right.
happen to you while you were sleeping? He's like, I still feel that way 7 months later,
Wow.
that I don't know if something is going to happen to you in your sleep.
Mhm.
So it's not just me. This affected my entire family. We're
Yeah.
all in a position of healing.
Do you guys talk about how you feel with each other, or do you still, I don't know, think of ways to, like, manage that anxiety together? Or is it more just like, "Okay, I see you're struggling, so I'll help you in that moment?"
Yeah, I think it's more of helping in the moment. I think we've taken time to talk about it. They call themselves trying to protect me, honey. So I didn't even find out about this stuff
Of
until
course, yeah.
until
They never tell you.
months later. And I was like,
Like, "Oh,
I'm
we
ready
didn't
to
want you to worry."
right. I'm like, see, I'm about to fight everybody up in here now.
Yes.
Okay. So these are things that I didn't even know about. So while
Mhm.
everybody is rallying, around me, because everybody knew how much anxiety I was dealing with. My
Right.
daughter, sweet thing, poor thing, she had something to do one day, and this was after I had gotten back home, and she was supposed to do something that day. But there were days where I would wake up and it just wasn't good. I didn't know what it was and I couldn't breathe and I felt my chest was heavy. And this particular day, she was supposed to go somewhere. And when I got up, I laid down on the couch and she said, it's not a good day. It's not a good morning. And I said, no. And I
Mhm.
really, I really tried to hold it in, but I just fell out into just tears. I fell out into tears and she was supposed to leave that day and she canceled her plans, you
Aw.
know, to stay there just
Yes.
to be, just to be with me, to
Just to
walk
be
me
with
through.
you.
And so then there was the other side of that where I felt so bad. I felt guilty. I felt like,
Right.
I'm stopping people from living their lives. So then that was another thing of the guilt that came with
Mhm.
it. I don't want people to feel like I'm messing their lives up
Right.
because now, you know, you're stopping your day to stay home with me.
Mhm.
You know, I felt like I couldn't be by myself. My kids, they drove me around for maybe, I don't know, I stayed with my mom for, I think, a little over a month, and once I came home, I think my kids drove me around for, like, another month or 2, something like that, because I
Yeah.
was scared to drive.
Which makes sense because you never know when one of your
Mhm.
symptoms are gonna come upon you,
Exactly.
so
Exactly. So I was just too scared to get behind the wheel. So
Mhm.
everybody was driving me everywhere, especially my daughter. My daughter, she just, she's driving me around. She's changing her schedule, and
How
then
old
my
are your
oldest daughter,
children when this
uh,
happened?
thir- 30 and 23.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were just, and my daughter actually, it was right before her 23rd birthday. So really at that time, it was 30 and 22 because she was about to
Mhm.
turn 23.
Okay.
Yeah. So they really kind of put things on hold for me. And then there was my husband who is like, he would love to have to, to put things on hold, but he got to pay for the
Yes,
hospital
keep
bills.
working, yeah.
Yeah. The lights still got to come on. And so he's out there working, plus trying to manage over here with me, plus trying to keep himself together, plus trying to be the emotional strength. So there's a lot, there's lots of nuances that have come along with me, myself, trying to heal, and all of us trying to give each other space to heal. I think at this point, like I said, I was shocked, to hear my husband a few weeks ago say it still is like, is everything okay? I guess he'd be wanting to shake me sometimes, like, don't disturb my sleep, man. But
It sounds
but
a bit
I
like,
can
like a mirror
understand.
over your
Right,
nose, make
right.
sure you're still
Let me
breathing.
squeeze your nose and make sure
Yes.
everything is good. But I can understand that. I truly
Yes,
can.
yeah. So, I know when we talked a lot about the faith aspect of that. So,
Mhm,
3 strokes in one day, not finding out what's going on, the anxiety, the fear, things that are going
mhm.
on with your family, where does faith fit into this?
Deliberately.
Okay.
And yeah, deliberately,
Mhm.
because I would lay there and I was, growing up in the church, there's such a, and I don't want to use the word stigma, but there's such a thing on not fearing. Don't fear,
Yes.
don't have fear, don't worry. Worry is a sin. Da, 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 blah, blah. So you have all of these things combating you in your head. Well, if you trust God, da, 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 and then you hear from other believers, hey, God's going to keep you. God's going to this, God's going to that. And while I believe that, you have to understand I'm suffering emotionally
Yes.
here. I
Mhm.
am breaking down every single day. I can, and then I'm pretending to be okay because I
Mhm.
don't want to worry other people. I'm in emotional, mental, and physical turmoil
Yes.
every single day. And then
Mhm.
the only thing that I have to lean on is people saying, God's going to do this, God's going to do that, versus me. This is my personal feeling, me feeling like I would have loved for somebody to say to me, I get it. You're scared.
Yes.
I understand. You're having a really hard time. I get it. You don't know what's going to happen. You're uncertain. I understand.
Mhm.
Live in those feelings. And as you live in those feelings, I'll lift you up. I
Yes.
will pray for the part that you can't do right now versus me feeling like, um, uh, I had to hold up that part of me. And it's not
Yes.
to say that other people didn't pray or this, that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it just would have been for me. I would have felt better knowing that I'm not struggling to make sure,
Yes.
hey, okay, God, is this okay, God? I'm scared, God, but are you mad at me because I'm scared?
Mhm.
You upset, God, because I'm anxious? No, no. So I
Right.
had to lean on that. I had to be in my word. I had, and I was knocking on God's door like, you sure, Jesus? You sure? Are you mad at me? I had,
Yeah.
I was listening to gospel music because I had to in order for my spirit to rest. That's when I would get some sleep. After hours of listening, I would drift off and then I would jump up. But I had to be I was in conversation with God 28 hours a day.
What does some of that conversation sound like?
Some of that conversation was, I'm scared. A
Mhm.
lot of the conversation was, I'm scared. Are you sure? Are you going to keep me? Are
Mhm.
you going to hold me? Can you breathe? I told the Lord one day, I said, I am so grateful to be alive, but I just want you to know this side is exhausting. This is exhausting.
Yes.
I had more peace while I was dying than I do now.
No.
I said, I said, this is exhausting. This healing process is draining me, sir. It's draining. But I felt so good being able to be real with God and understanding that I have your word. I have your word. And even if I don't feel like your word is true, I need to know that your word is true so that
Yes.
I will be deliberate in reciting your word. See, I didn't have to feel that it in order for
Mhm.
me to keep it on my tongue because faith comes by hearing. And so I needed to hear it over and over and over again, even if I didn't feel it.
Do you have some scriptures that you used?
Oh
Like
my
specific
gosh.
ones?
You know what? I don't even know if I had a specific scripture, but I know I kept saying to God that he was the one, he was the keeper. He was the keeper of my soul. And I continue to lean on the fact that God's promises that I was still here for a reason and that he that began a good work in me. He
He'll be
wasn't done.
faithful to complete it. Yes.
Yes, he will be faithful
Mhm.
and it wasn't done. And the reason I knew it wasn't done is because I was here.
You're here.
So
Yeah.
my whole thing was you're not going to save me just to kill me. It don't make sense. It's
Right.
something in here that's still here, and you're faithful. I don't feel it. So therefore, I have to speak it. I had to speak that no weapon formed against my body was going to prosper. No weapon formed against my mind was going to prosper, even through the tears, even through not being able to breathe. I would just have to whisper it. Because these were things that I needed to believe were true
Mhm.
even if I
Yeah.
didn't feel like it was true. I believe that God is who he says he is. I believe
Yes.
no matter what, good day, bad day, great day, terrible day. I still believe that you are who you say you are. And so I had to lean on the fact that I believe that you're a God who you say you are, a God of love. You make no mistake. I believe that. But as I believe that, I just want you to know I'm in turmoil right now. I can't breathe right now. I'm suffocating right now, and I need your peace to lay on me.
Yes. And you and I talked about this a little bit before, just like you said about that idea that we can't be honest with God in that way. And that's exactly what he wants for us to
Mhm.
do is he says cast all our cares on him. And it's
Yes.
not like, hey God, like, I'm okay, but I'm not okay. Like he wants that real raw, like,
So
what are you
that
going
part.
through? Yeah, because if you're not
Yes,
honest with him and being honest with yourself, there's no way, right? He can move and he can work if you're trying to
exactly.
bring this fake person to him. Did you
Exactly.
find, like, through that I know you had your family, I don't know, like, as far as friends and community around you, did people rally around that idea? Where people kinda like, "Oh, no, don't pray that way, don't be that way?"
It wasn't anything verbal, so and a lot of people didn't even know that it happened. I'm an extremely private person, so it's not like,
Mhm.
it's like, "Oh, hey, social media, look what happened." That's not me. People who were close to my network, they knew. Certain people who my husband talked to, they knew. Good friends, they knew. People at my mom's church, they knew. So a few people here and there, they knew what happened. And I had and the group that I have of people, they're wonderful. And we have some wonderful friends, a married couple who they came the day that I was released from the hospital and they were at my house. They were at my house to visit me, to love on me, to pray with me, to feed me. I had people come to the hospital. My brother found out and left his job and, was right there. So I
That's
had
awesome.
I had lots of love from my nice little tight community. And
Mhm.
if I know you asked me about a scripture, and I may not have had a favorite scripture that I leaned on, but I remember saying, if I never knew before, I really understand the verse that says, "Death has no sting." It's, "Oh, death,
Okay.
where's your sting?" It's not here. It's not in the believer because we have a promise of what's going to happen once we live this life. So when I said that I felt nothing but peace as I was dying, I felt that because death has no sting to those who are in
Yes.
Christ.
Amen. That's awesome. So tell me about the career switch. How did that just
Yeah.
make you decide that you wanted to change what you were doing?
It was almost it wasn't even so much of a switch. It was really like a light bulb.
Okay.
Because I was excited about purpose, and I really wanted
Mhm.
people to know what God had done for me. And so I
Yes.
was telling everybody, I'm like, you know what? Literally, God raised me from the dead, baby. Call me Lazarita because
Mm.
God came
I
up in
love
there.
that.
Okay.
All
And
right,
so
Lazarita. That is
me and
amazing.
my crib, we be joking. She'd be like, "What's
Yes.
up, Lazarita?" And so, I was so excited about God raising me from the dead, and I will stand on that as long as I live, that my
Mhm.
body was the
It was
life was
going.
leaving and you turned it
Yes.
around and you put it back in there. And I was so excited about that. When I came home, I'm like, I love what I do, but that's not the full purpose. I don't believe that that's my purpose. What I've done in life is wonderful. I work with mompreneurs. I help them combat burnout and frustration. That's great, but that's not
Right.
promise. What is the promise? Promise is the purpose that I've been aligned to. I've been grinding and hustling these all these years, and to a
Mhm.
degree, that's great. I'm a hustler, but I think that it has taken on a different definition, and hustle culture has become a breakdown in some sense, where we
Okay.
don't give ourselves permission to have alignment, to allow God to let his grace guide. And in that moment, I believe that I heard God say, it's time to switch that up and to move from working with mompreneurs to working with women of God, because women of God need to understand and know their purpose. And women of God need to know that they don't have to grind to get what it is that I'm giving to them. If they get in alignment, if they walk with grace, then not only will their business grow, but their life will grow. And you don't have to worry about burnout, exhaustion. You don't have to worry about those things because you have a formula where you'll be
Mhm.
able to work, rest, build. There's a time for everything,
Right.
including a time to sit down and be rejuvenated and be
Yes.
refreshed and be renewed.
So throughout this whole podcast, right? You've been sharing your story. I love your voice, everything that you've been doing. When you just started talking about your purpose, you just lit up, your voice changed. Like it is clear you are doing what you are supposed to be doing. And I love
Yes,
that. Like just
yes,
everything about you says, like, this is where I am supposed to be. I am blessed and that God
yeah,
is leading me in this. And
yes.
I'm assuming that's what you want the women you work with to feel.
This is where I want us all to be. The one thing that I took away is there was nothing wrong with what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, was it God aligned?
Right.
That's the difference. I was
Yes.
working with women. I'm still working with women. It's just that now I'm working with women of God, and we're going to put down grind. We're going to pick up grace, and we're going to do it in purpose. We're going to discover our purpose. We're going to find out, is my business even a part of my purpose? The reason why you might be so frustrated and upset all the time is because you wasn't even supposed to be in that business. So
Okay.
let's go back. Let's go back and let's say, "Hey God, where was I supposed to be? What was I supposed to be doing?" Let's align these things so that I can build in grace. The bottom line is we taking off grind. We're gonna take that off and we're gonna leave that. God has aligned me with a refreshed purpose. I still have the same gifts and talent I had before. The purpose is the same. The way I maneuver the purpose is different. The way I put it out is different. The assignment is different. God, I'm still a speaker. God is still giving me the ability to coach. God has still given me all the same gifts and talent. They all are still there. The assignment is new and I'm up for it. And I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
How did you do the switch to, like you said, the women of
Hmm.
grace and the women of God? What
Hmm.
was the process like for you to get that up and running?
Child, I'm still doing the switch, okay?
Okay.
I am switch. I'm
Okay.
literally in the process of working on my website so that I can begin to bridge all of that together. And
Yes.
eventually, as I step a little bit back into social media, I've never been a big social media person, but as I step back
Mhm.
into it, my content will now begin to change a little bit. You'll find a little more health awareness on there,
Okay.
mainly about strokes, of course. You'll find
Yes.
some of the same things that I've talked about, which is burnout prevention, but now I'm aligning it with God. I'm aligning those things with Christ. And so for the women who love God and and who want to stick around, wonderful, awesome. For those who are mompreneurs, but that's not their thing, they'll trickle off. But because I believe God, because I trust God and I'm walking in my grind, whoever stays, stays, whoever goes, goes, and we still gonna keep on moving. Because I'm not trying to build my followers. I don't care. Follow or don't. But the ones who do follow, we're going to align ourselves with Christ and we're going to allow Him to order our steps so that we'll be able to build a prosperous life and business. We're not leaving nothing behind, and
Mhm.
relationships and everything else that God has for us. But we're going to do it with Him being the compass and not us trying to guide God.
Yes. We're in faith, right? We know like blessings in the storm, and nobody wants to go through the storm. It's hard,
Right.
it's horrible. And like
Mhm.
you said, we're like, God, why? Like, there was no
Mhm.
other way you could teach me this. But
Right.
like, what do you feel like you learned through this? Other than like your business and stuff, it could be about you, about your family, about the world. Like, what
Mhm.
do you feel like you have gained from this experience?
That honestly, life is a gift and you're not in control. It doesn't matter. You don't get to control the death date. So do everything you've been called to in the dash. I have no control of that. I wake up every morning not knowing if I'm going to bed tonight. And I know that to be a truth because it happened. I woke up, I went to the ER, and not one time did I ever think that I would end up in a hospital bed clinging to life. That wasn't part of the plan. And so when I get up in the morning, it is a true gift because I understand in a way that I didn't understand before that there's no promises when it comes to the expansion of life. There are no
Right.
guarantees. The only guarantee that I have in this life is that it's going to come to an end. That's the
Mhm.
only guarantee that I have
Yes.
is that this life ends. So whatever I'm going to do in that dash, I want to make sure that I empty every single thing out of me. When I leave this earth, I want to leave empty. I want to be coughing up dust. That's how empty your girl wants to be because I did
Yes.
everything. I met
Everything.
everyone. I poured
Mhm.
all that I was supposed to in the purpose that God has provided and given. So as I said before, while there was nothing wrong with what I was doing before, the question I had to ask myself is, was it aligned with purpose? That was the
Mhm.
question. Not did it benefit others, not the accolades, not how great it was. The programs that I've done have been great. All of that's been great. The question now was it aligned? And so now that's all I want. I want those things that are aligned because even though those things were wonderful, if they weren't purposeful, if they weren't connected to my purpose, then it wasn't really fruitful. Not for what I was called to. It was fruitful in a world sense, sure, but it wasn't fruitful to my calling. And that's what matters. The grave is filled with calling and purpose. I don't
Mhm.
want to add to it.
I like that. That was good. So what would you say to our listeners today? What can they take away? If they take away one thing, how can they rise after hearing your story?
Know that you're purposed. That's the thing that I want you to know. Know that you have been created and designed deliberately. Your handprint is yours, baby. Can't nobody be you. And I do mean nobody. There's not anyone on the face of this earth who is going to be able to stand in your place. There are lives that will only be touched because of you. Because of you. there are people who will hear my story, say, "Oh, wow, that's great. Look what God did." And they'll move on. But yet they'll hear your story, how you stumped your toe on a bike, and all of a sudden their whole world has turned around because you are the connection. You are
Yes.
the person. So if there would be anything I would want people to know, I would want them to know that you are golden. You are unique. You are special. And you are the apple of God's eye. There will never be another one quite like you.
Oh, thank you. I feel so special right now. And
Yes,
I
you
hope our
are.
listeners do too. That was so wonderful. And you are right. That's why I wanted to have this podcast, right? Is for people to see like how powerful they are and how if
Mhm.
we kind of come together and listen to each other's stories and figure things out, like we are not that different. Like you
Right.
said, we all have a purpose. We all are meant for something. And finding
Yes.
that and standing strong in who you are, and it
Yes.
doesn't take away from who someone else is. We build
Not at all.
together. And
We
I feel
build
like you have
together.
embodied that in everything that you shared today. So I really, really appreciate what
Oh.
you've shared with us. I know you said you're a private person. So I'm sure getting on podcasts and talking to strangers are like, I
Well,
don't know if I want to
what
do
I
this, but
what I love is that, I'm a multifaceted person like all of us. And so this is what I do and this is what I love. I
mm-hmm.
love speaking. I love empowering women. I love doing events. And once it's over, I love leaving.
Yes.
I love to
I
get in
hear
my
you.
car and I love to not talk to you. That's
Yes.
what I love. you know but while I'm there, you can't tear me away because that's
mm-hmm.
what I was made to do. That's what I
Yes.
was created to do. I was created to pour life into others. The gifts that God have given me, they're not for me, they're for a breakthrough in you or whatever
mm-hmm.
else you need. Whatever
Yes.
you need, God has given me a word to bless your life, and I take that seriously, and I love every part of it. But once that part of me is closed, once the business is off for the day, I'm back to my shell.
Yes, yeah. Well, you have to refresh and then pour into your family as well and spend time with them,
Yes.
so that's
And so
definitely good having that
everything is just
boundary.
closed off. Once I close that door, everything is closed off. There's absolutely nothing. Nothing.
Mhm. So for the moments that you are on and available, where can people find you and connect with you?
Yes, you can find me on my website, which is www.shelleymeche'tte.com. That's
Mhm.
ShelleyMeche'tte. And so it's a little under construction. So,
Okay.
one button may work, the other button may not work, but it's coming, y'all. It's coming.
Okay.
And we can always connect on social media, on Instagram as well as Facebook. We can connect there. It is at
Okay.
my name as well. And I would love to leave your listeners a gift, and we could connect with that as well. I love to leave them my 5-day journal of being able to
Okay.
refresh and
Yes.
realign. And so we'll be able to connect there as well. And I'll leave that link for your listeners today.
Perfect. All right, Miss Shelley, I really appreciate your time, like I said, and we will keep in touch and follow
Yes.
what's going on with you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for a great conversation, Shelley, and for your uplifting and powerful words. I kid you not when I say I left this conversation feeling like I could do anything. Don't forget to check out the show notes today. You will find two links. The first is to Shelley's 5-day Journey with God journal. I haven't finished it yet, but I have read through them all. Yes, I looked ahead. And the prompts are requiring me to look within and also realize that I need to surrender a few more things to God. But you know me, I love reflecting, so this journal is perfect. The second link is to join a waitlist for Shelley's new book, God Said No, a stroke survivor's story of resilience, recovery, and renewal. When you join the waitlist, you'll be entered for a chance to win a personally signed copy of the book, and you'll get a link to join the virtual release party. The book drops on May 27th, and the release party is May 30th at 10 a.m. Pacific. I will be at the party, so you and I can go together. So tell me, what did you think of today's episode? What are you taking away with you that will help add value to your life and to the lives of those around you? Send me a text using the link at the top of the show notes or drop a line under this week's episode art on Instagram at Where We Rise Pod. All right, y'all. That's all from me for now. But as you move on through the rest of your day, I hope you take a moment to listen a little louder to yourself, to the people you love, and to the things that connect us in ways we sometimes forget to notice. I'll meet you back here next time. See ya, bye.